heads up, kind of the public service announcement is this is being recorded. So Shelby Wood, who organized this event for our department, is actually sadly feeling not very well today. So she's not joining us, but she's absolutely behind the scenes, letting everybody in and starting to navigate some of the technology behind today's presentation. So, like I said, today it is being recorded. So just so you know, and it will be added to our presentation archive on the city's website. So with that, let's dive right in. I hope everybody can see the presentation screen here. I'm going to start things off, and then I'm going to kick it over to John Van to talk about some of the projects in downtown, and then we'll wrap up with Mona Shuri, talking about some of the retail and activation in downtown. And then, if you don't mind, as we go through, if you have a burning question, please do throw that into the chat feature, and we'll catch that at the end, or sprinkled in throughout as we go. So we're going to try to keep this to right about 45 minutes and allow the last 15 for questions as we go through. So with that, let's just dive right in. So downtown Westminster, I'm not going to spend a ton of time. I assume that everybody knows kind of where we're talking about, right on US 36, the location of the former mall, but strategically located right between Denver and Boulder. And I'd love to say, Westminster is very unique. It's a city of choice. And one of the things that we like to, know is we're not as dense as Denver, and we're not as, nutty as Boulder. We're a little bit both, right? A little dense, a little nutty. And that's really been a good fit for the downtown Westminster site. As we go through there, many of you may remember the old mall. As a kid growing up in the area, I probably spent way too many hours in the game room, Chick-fil-A and Cinnabon when that came on. But usually when we're in our person, I like to ask you, hey, who remembers the mall, who worked in the mall? And we have a variety of folks, staff in particular with the city that used to be employed at the Westminster Mall back in the heyday. So just a great location again with the 1.2 million square foot regional mall that was a destination. And we used to have people literally from Cheyenne to Kansas City to, from Pueblo that used to come over to the Westminster Mall back in the early 80s and through the early 90s. And it really was, as a place to be. So you can see in this photo, that was a great, I would say, community gathering point more than anything else. Again, growing up in the area, we'd say, hey, I'll meet you at the mall. And everybody knew it was the Westminster Mall. And we would meet there, and we go at the, right here, you see in the left photo is the center court where the famous balloons were located, and get a number of events from our police department going out there to Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, Halloween. This literally was the community gathering place for the city of Westminster. But what happened? So you can see on this happy little graph that our finance department had put together for us a while back. In the teal bar is the revenues that the city received from the Westminster Mall specifically in sales tax collections. And then the orange bar or gold bar, however you want to put it, was literally all the rest of the other cities' sales tax collections. And you can see back in 1999, 2000, we really peaked on sales tax, and then it began a very steep decline. And part of the reason was the Flatiron Mall opened up in late 2000, early 2001. So the city had a problem. We were losing a major retail sales tax generator for the city, and we had some options, right? From a do-nothing strategy to partial demolition, adaptive reuse, to just literally starting all over. And one of the things that you may or may not know is the Westminster Mall was literally on the cover of Dead Mall magazine. And so, like many other malls across the U.S., they've struggled, and that one particularly struggled. Like the Northglenn Mall, where it went from an indoor mall now to a lifestyle center. And we see that flip and convergence of retail throughout the United States. The city of Westminster decided to take a different move, though, as we kind of go, some of the history on this thing with the mall, the sales tax generation. From that, one of the things I'd like to say is we literally acquired the mall back, I think it was 2009 to 2011. And, many of you remember the Great Recession. That was right in the middle of that. And one of the things the city wanted to do was recreate that vibrancy and that connectivity for our residents and the region at large. Unfortunately, with not having a lot of strong, I would say, groups coming in to just buy the entire site, the city ended up buying it and then attracting what the redevelopment partners would look like. And so one of the things we did was went out and started creating a public visioning session that in 2012 literally went out to the public and said, what do you want? What is our community missing? And what could this thing look like in the future? And that's really where we sent an RFP back in 2009 to different master developers to find one that could implement this plan. And what you see on this graphic is we literally had multiple development proposals back then. And unfortunately, because the economics back in that day, there was nobody that was going to lend money to a developer to take down a 100-acre site to go develop yet another mall. They'd failed. They were continuing to fail, and so we needed to think differently about what this downtown Westminster could be. So we wanted to create a unique offering of a mixture of uses that included the residential, the office, the hotels, the entertainment, all those different pieces that really start to create the fabric of an exciting downtown. So you can see from 2010, we had one master developer, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I mean, literally nearly 5 years of what I'd say is just not even failed attempts at attracting a master developer, but just the reality of the economics at the time. And then the value proposition the developers were bringing didn't meet the intent of what our leadership and city council wanted to see, which was this vibrant downtown. A lot of the proposals came back with more big box and just kind of sprinkled out. And you think about some of the challenges other places like Belmar, South Glen, other redevelopment projects have done okay, but they really have not peaked at what I think the vision ultimately was. So with that, we started this demolition project, and you can see we literally had, I can't remember, Mona, there must have been 3,000 people that showed up to this event. I mentioned you, Mona, because I know that you actually have a souvenir from the old mall site, which I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the food court trays that had the balloon on there, which is really cool. So yeah.
As well as a brick from the building. So they were distributing those as well.
That's right. Yeah. So you got a brick. And again, those are, and again, maybe I shouldn't say this, Mona, but I think you also still have in a box somewhere under lock and key the old balloons from the fountain, right?
Good. We do have the white balloons, yes.
Yeah. So you can see on the stage again, actually it was Mayor McNally was mayor back then, and she gave a nice keynote address at that demolition project. But it's kind of baffling to think that this building really was that community gathering place, and so many people came out to see the first part of that deconstruction. So with all the outreach to the community, this really was the vision, a place to connect people to each other and their community. Downtown Westminster will act as the civic, cultural, and economic core of the city, place of innovation, creativity, growth, where sustainability, technology, and inclusiveness are implemented into the physical and cultural environment developed over time, one block at a time. And that really has been the core theme of our project of developing the downtown Westminster site. So oftentimes we get that question. So why would you build a downtown? Why not just let the private market kind of take it and kind of do what they would do with probably bringing in different big box retailers or more of a lifestyle center? Well, we really kind of anchored on these key categories, which was that identified and identity and quality of life, right? We want to make that activation the center of gathering spaces and places. A lot of times when we're talking to our retailers and development partners, I'll say, hey, what is it going to take to get people off their Netflix couch? Because life has become very easy to sit in front of your big screen TV, surround sound, DoorDash is bringing in everything you want. What is it going to take to get you out of that environment and into a different environment? And that literally is the mantra of what we're trying to create in downtown, this regional destination, building identity and provide that civic and cultural core of our community. We're making progress. We're not there yet, but we're making good progress on that. Economic growth, again, you can't have everything in a bag of chips. You need to actually have the financial wherewithal to reinvest, invest, and then diversify and build that tax base for the city. And then importantly, we really have been focused on bringing office to the downtown. And as everybody on this call knows, office is weird. People aren't in the office full time. Even here at the city, right? We've gone to a hybrid approach. 3 days a week, where it used to be very much, the 4 10s or 5 days a week we were in the office. That has shifted, which means every corporate entity across the US and globally has shifted. And so now we're reacting to that. Where's office going to come back in? So it's a key component of our downtown, and we're really focused on bringing that first developer to build us some office. Next one is that smart growth. Again, knowing that we have pre-COVID, the RTD US 36 station, which has the bus rapid transit that gets you right to downtown Denver in one stop in 15 minutes and out to Boulder, a couple stops, about 2025. That was the busiest bus stop in all of the RTD network with over 500 buses a day. And with the engineering team, they just built, Seth Blast and that group, the tunnel that connects right from downtown to the RTD station. So we have that direct connectivity right to that transit stop, which is huge. And just kind of some other information, RTD is currently working on the peak rail system to actually build the station for the commuter rail, which would be a 3-mile connection to the Westminster station we built a few years ago, all the way up to Longmont. So going through Broomfield, Boulder, Louisville, up there, that would build the station and provide that connectivity from a commuter rail perspective to downtown Westminster as well. So still a lot of active conversations and things happening in that space. So with all that background, this literally is the vision for downtown Westminster, and that has not changed. We have 2 to 3 million square feet of office that we've been holding property on the west, or I should say the east side of the downtown site, west of US 36 and Sheridan. And those pad sites that we're now building, Benton Street is going to frame out the rest of downtown, can literally accommodate 2 to 3 million square feet of office, Class A, beautiful looking buildings. So we're really optimistic and hopeful we'll get that moving forward soon. 4,500 residents, again, bringing those rooftops, those people that can spend money in our retail establishments is key to the success of any downtown. 500,000 square feet of retail, get places to shop, and again, unique offerings, something that you can't get everywhere else in the metro area. So we're really working hard to bring in some of those things. One key thing I know Mona will talk about in a bit is, Bonchon Korean barbecue that just opened up. Just a data point, and hopefully Mona not stealing your thunder, but they literally are the top producing bonchon in the United States, even after only being open 45 days. And what that tells all of us, Olive Garden is doing great. The Tappenberger is doing great. This really was almost like a restaurant desert, but they really want unique offerings. We're seeing a lot of success from those restaurants. 300 hotels, entertainment district. Mona will talk about that a bit as well as the LEED Silver buildings. Again, water efficiency, one data point that you may or may not be aware of. One of our buildings, the Aspire in downtown, because of the LEED Silver focus and the water-wise, not only appliances, but toilet sinks and things like that, they're literally using 43% less water than projected. And I think that's a key piece, particularly anybody who's worked in the city for a while knows, our water resource has been at the top of residents, council, leadership. Do we have enough water? And when we start to design and construct buildings with that efficiency standpoint, we know we're actually using less water in a more efficient way. So working with our public works team, really deep diving into that analysis as to what in this confined space are we truly using, not only from a water resource, but then also the effluent that goes out in that system. So it's a great kind of building a city within a city. You can really control those, the data and analytics of what's happening on this site. So we're pretty excited about some of the things that have come to fruition through that. Talked about access to mass transit already as well. So density and activity, that's really the focus of the downtown Westminster site as we start to move forward. This slide from the financial impact, we provided a deep dive this past May with City Council, and this slide is one of many that are publicly available in that presentation back in May. Well, one of the questions that we often get is, we hear you guys have, invested a lot of money in downtown Westminster. What does that return on that investment look like? How much have you put in? What do you expect to get out? Our finance team, along with our financial consultants, I want to say spent probably 2.5 months doing a deep investigation into all the expenditures from our certificates of participation to go build roads, water, sewer, regional stormwater into the downtown, as well as all the acquisition costs on the front end of the project as well. And that totaled well over $100 million to go into all those pieces from acquisition to those original construction and investment into the downtown. On this side, you start to see where those investment dollars uh, not only are identified, but now how are we getting that return back in? So from sales tax, property tax, the land sales, development review. I know it's pretty small on this screen, but again, you can download this from the city council's agenda. General improvement district. So we have revenues that are specifically going back into the downtown that are property taxes paid by the developers on the site. So it's a revenue source to maintain the park, streetscape, facilities, police, fire, all the different services we provide into the downtown. So this graph you can kind of see is it ramps up pretty significantly as we approach 2039. And then you see a big drop off. What happened was the urban renewal area that we established uh, back in the day it has a 15-year time frame on it. So that actually sunsets in 2038. And so we still see those revenues in 39, but then it drops off significantly. So all the districts that used to get money off of the downtown will now get that money back starting in 2040. And so that's a big piece where there was zero property tax coming off this site. After we scraped it, we're now rebuilding it, and then those monies go right back into the districts that serve the population in the downtown. So again, kind of a high level summary, but one of the key takeaways is, after $100 million of investments, after a year, I think 2045, we're going to see well over $400 million of return. And so what I'll tell you is that we have a break point of around 2033 where all the expenditures start to meet by revenues coming in. And so this is something we don't take lightly, but we look at every single year doing a deep dive into the economics of downtown. So how did we get from there, right? The old mall. And that's actually a really nice kind of vibrant picture on the left, because I think when we acquired it, it did look, there's a lot of retailers that were closed by that time, and it was pretty desolate. But how do we get from there to here, right? So now we have mixed use developments. We have the Elmo Draft House Theater, Origin Hotel with a familial restaurant on the ground floor of that, with a couple other apartment buildings. So one of the things that our planning team did on the very front end, and one of our former counterparts, who's now also a city councilor, Sarah DeMello, was key in creating this downtown specific plan that really became the framework for every development in the downtown project. So we have basically almost a use by right that as developers approach us, we negotiate through that. And as long as they satisfy or comply with the specific plan, we feel we have the ability to then negotiate a deal with them to go build their project. So that has been a key thing for the downtown. We also have a specific plan in the Westminster Station area, similar but also different in how we're implementing both of those. So we have that regulatory, the zoning, administrative review. They typically all go to council because we have to sell the land. So we always have a purchase and sale agreement that is presented to council that they review, and as long as they approve of that, we move forward with selling in fee simple transaction to these developers. So with that, as long as we have that vision alignment with the mixture of uses, and again, our presentation back in May, we talked a lot with council about what that wants to look like long term and getting their feedback as to what our next in development projects look like. In phased approach, short term, create the market, nothing was there. We literally found ourselves out to the marketplace trying to sell this vision. Like, what is this? And how can I be a part of it? The midterm, now we're going to look at building that employment core. We do have, obviously, jobs created on the site with some of the retailers and general managers of the buildings. But we really want to have that daytime activation with the future office building. One of the recent moves that our consultant team made was they're now attracting a lot of, I would say, through something called LoopNet and our CoStar, really getting the downtown Westminster on the map for a lot of different corporations, because we know the key to any successful office is having the tenants, people who actually want to work in downtown Westminster, because that really creates that daytime activation and then services to those restaurants on site. And then long-term, maintain quality and vibrancy. This is an area where, we're now into it, 9 years, I think, and we're already starting that maintenance mode. How do we maintain what we've installed? John Van could talk about some things, lessons learned. on what we installed that maybe we should do a little bit differently. So it's a continual effort of revising, refining, and improving the downtown Westminster location. Where are we now? So again, if you've, I'm sure you've all driven out there, driven through there, a number of different developments that have either opened. Everything in purple is currently open and occupied. And I'll say, in Moni, I always have these numbers at your fingertips, but I think every one of the residential buildings is well over 90% occupied. Is that right? Yeah.
They are, a majority are fully occupied right now, which means anywhere from 95 to 97%. Because of that turnover rate at the end of the lease, they always have just a few apartments that are available, but they're fully leased. So.
Yeah, which is great. So we love that. And again, I've known a few people that live there, and the amenities there are fantastic, and it's wonderful. And then the things that are in, I think the red is under construction. I have on this slide, but that actually did open up this past year. The townhomes on Harlan. And so we have, I think, 34 units of ownership residential that are now occupied. We actually have a couple of our city staff who live in that townhome building, which is really cool. So we get a lot of good feedback. And then everything that's in the teal color is either planned, in negotiation, or will very soon be under construction. One of the key ones is there, I think, number 13, Marzak Fine Foods. Many of you probably remember we've talked about Pete Marzak and his team for the better part of 9, 10 years now. And so they're actually going to do an adaptive reuse of the former US Bank building. John Van's building an alley and water line right in front of that building. And that the alley project's starting literally, I think, this week with major work. And then Marzak is starting some of their interior remodeling and demolition here shortly as well. So they plan to be open by, I'm guessing at this point, probably the mid to end of Q1 or early Q2 of next year, which would be a really great offering of their wine and cheese and things that they offer in that place at Marzak. So
yeah, just
we'll
one
keep,
more correction on that
please.
screen, that last slide, John.
Yep.
Item number 2 is the additional townhomes and condominiums. So they have started the foundations on the 17 townhomes that are being developed in that area. So I apologize for that mistake.
No, that's all me. So yeah, that actually is under construction with another, and it is 30, I'm sorry, that one has 17 new
17
townhomes.
townhomes.
And our mayor's favorite 20 condominium units as well. So that'll be the next part of that construction project. Yeah, thank you for that, Mona. So a couple things, again, we kind of just briefly talked about what's going to be happening from 23 to 25. The condominium project, that's a rendering of, I think that right is at 90th and Westminster Boulevard, kind of looking northwest. The 55 plus active adult is actually right across the street at 90th and Westminster Boulevard, looking northeast. So that's a rendering of that building. And then the bottom left townhomes is the rendering of 92nd Avenue. You'll see that's just a 2-story, but a pitched roof, more of a kind of a Norwegian type of design with those. And so kind of a different offering from townhomes. The middle bottom is also the townhomes on that block A4 right there at 90th and Westminster Boulevard, or 91st and Westminster Boulevard. And then obviously Marzak Fine Foods.
And just so everyone knows, the townhomes that were in the left bottom hand corner, we're actually getting ready to close on that. So that construction will be starting shortly.
Yes, thank you, Mona. Yeah, so Mona's our closing person. So all the real estate transactions in downtown, she's on point. And so, yes, thank you. I think that's next week. Oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, super excited to get that project rolling as well. And then future development, these are where we think about what's next. And so we are talking to a couple developers about a mid-rise residential. That'll be 10 to 13 stories just north of Center Park. John Van will talk about Center Park here in a moment. Again, office renderings, what we think we want to see as far as some of the towers in downtown. So there's no height limitations along US 36, future condominiums, and then events and activation. One will cover here in just a couple as well. So those are a number of things on our radar, and I'm going to pitch it over to John Van to talk about some of the park master planning. And John, just give me the cue when you want me to forward slides for you, sir.
Sure. Well, thank you, John. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Van, Capital Project Administrator with Economic Development. Also a landscape architect, and I've worked for several years with Parks and Recreation as well, working on park design and recreational amenities for our residents and even for us. I think what's really fun here is the fact that when the downtown was planned, we included 18 acres of open space and parkland because you want somewhere to work, you want somewhere to live, you need somewhere to play. And that is something that, we've taken very much to heart. We've worked very long in thinking, what is actually going to work? What are people going to be demanding? And so you haven't seen a tremendous amount of park development in through the downtown yet because we're waiting to develop those residents that are telling us what they're looking for in those buildings. But now I'm happy to announce, we're going to be moving forward here in the next year, and we're going to see a lot of dirt fly. So when we created the downtown, we tried to create areas that kind of surrounded a perimeter and set the stage for the downtown to be a very special place. So we have the current Central Square Plaza and Pavilion that has been used for many of our events. Center Park, which will be the centerpiece of the entire downtown. East Park, which will be available to develop after Benton Street is completed. And then there's South Park, which basically is our front door along 88th Avenue on the south. The one thing that's not mentioned in here, because it's such a little guy, is West Park. And I'll mention that in another slide, though, because that's actually going to be coming online here relatively soon, too. So if you want another slide, John. So this is a location of where the park spaces are going to be throughout downtown. And right side, you'll see an overall map of most of the downtown. A little bit of it got cut off, but you can see South Park on 88th, East Park along future Benton Street, and how that frame gives us a nice framework there to the east and a buffer towards US 36. Central Square Plaza is that kind of funky shape there in the middle right. Then Center Park, which is going to begin construction later this year, which will be extremely exciting. You can just see a view of Central Square Plaza there in the top, but we're going to focus now on Center Park, which is there on the left side of the screen. What you see there is a diagram of the use areas that we've determined for the design. One of the things that we've learned to recognize through COVID and through communications with folks around the downtown and throughout Westminster is they like to do lots of stuff. They don't want just a playground. They don't want a shelter. They want places to be able to go for lunch, throw out a blanket, maybe see a band, do some yoga, do some, take the dogs out. So there's all kinds of different things. And that's probably the key to the major design focus on Center Park. With PRL, we've identified different types of uses, from special events to an 8-person yoga class to wanting to bring in a farmer's market or an artist show, something like that. So if you look at that drawing, you can see different colors and they each represent a different opportunity, which we believe is going to be really cool and really set off Center Park and make it truly functional for the entire downtown. We have flex lawns that we can set up events. We're going to have urban plazas where you can go to the surrounding retails, buy your lunch, and come out and grab some sunshine over the lunch hour for those office spaces. We'll have a small place to be able to take your dog as a destination. We're going to have a water play zone and a regular play area for younger residents that either live downtown or come to visit, and grab an ice cream cone. So Center Park is going to be really, really exciting. And again, that is going to begin construction this year. John, you want to hit another screen? So these are a couple of images of Center Park. And yes, we are looking to break ground sometime in November of this year. We're looking for this project to carry on until spring, summer of 2025, as we work through design features and stuff like that. But this gives you a little bit better cue of what those design areas were. 10 is an open lawn, 9 is a big great lawn, focusing in on another restroom facility that's going to serve as a backdrop for special events. We're going to have gardens and landscaping. We're going to use AstroTurf. AstroTurf's not the right, we'll call it synthetic turf, in areas that need to support and be strong for all kinds of fun. So you can see in these pictures, what we're trying to bring in are just different types of things and for people to experience and have fun with. And the bottom left, you see a balloon shape, which is going to be our central theme coming from the mall. We wanted to stick with some of that original history of the community. So we're trying to integrate balloons into the park design. So this balloon on the lower left is actually a spray water fountain for kids to be able to play in and have fun. There will be other opportunities for balloon structures lighted at night to be sprinkled throughout the park. I have all kinds of imagery I'd be happy to share or show anybody should they want to give me a call. But I'm just showing you a few here. Upper left, you get to see a putting green on one of those AstroTurf areas and one of our shelters that will provide places for lunch and for relaxation. And you can see recently we put some Adirondack chairs out in the plaza, and they are full of people all the time. Kind of our first stab at throwing out some fun furniture, and we want to continue that throughout Center Park. Upper right, we got swings that line a pathway that we can set up with tents and exhibits and things like that. Just all kinds of fun stuff that we can do. Go ahead, John. We can move into another one. So that's Center Park. Another park that's beginning construction this fall will be what we call our West Park, and that's actually being done in conjunction with the A4 townhomes. So you see a couple of images here. It's a very, very small park, but it's on the west side of the development. It helps tie us across Harlan Avenue there to the commercial areas over there. So this is going to be beginning construction soon. We've got a contract that will be approved, hopefully by council here later in September, and be moving forward with this. Now, what I'm not showing here is a really unique feature that we're going to have, which is called a Woonerf, which will actually be an alley in between the two different townhome projects. That is not going to get constructed now, as we are still awaiting further construction of townhomes and condominiums. And we have learned, as John mentioned earlier, learning to do things differently. And so we're not building streetscapes and we're not landscaping before the builders get there. That was kind of the idea when we started, but we just found construction and landscape don't mix. So we're working on different ways to get around that and work with the developers and to do some better timing. So the Woonerf is not there yet, but stay tuned and come to our next little rodeo here that when we do another presentation, and we can share some plans on that, because we're hoping to begin that sometime later next year. So I think that's the last slide I think I had, John. So that's kind of it on the downtown parks. We are happy to be moving ahead and create more energy downtown. We've got different businesses coming on that Mona will be happy to tell us about, and that hopefully we'll be using all of our park facilities. Over to you, Mona.
Thank you, John. As you're aware, some of you may have heard in the past that retail follows rooftops. So now that there's a lot of residential that's occurring in downtown Westminster, you may have noticed that there's a lot of retail that's starting to occur as well. We have the existing JCPenney's that is still there. We have the Bolero in Dr. McMurtry's office. Olive Garden is still located in downtown Westminster. But also, you may be aware that the Origin Hotel is there, along with Tattered Cover Bookstore and Famil, Alamo Draft House bringing in the attraction. Ascent Aspire has Superfruits and Inks and Drinks. So all of the developments are starting to bring in new retail sites. Bonchon, they opened up just a couple months ago, and they were one of the #1 Bonchons out of the United States, just within that first month. So, that excitement is coming, and a lot of the retail tenants that are there over the past few years, they've been winning awards. So, Sweet Bloom was awarded by Food and Wine magazine as being Colorado's best coffee shop. And, that's a big honor. Famil was awarded Yelp's top 50 a couple years ago. So the retail sites that we're bringing into downtown Westminster, they are having that popularity. They're a place to go, more of that destination. So I know everyone's always wondering, okay, what's next? What are you bringing in? You'll see that the lease signs are still up, but please know that, as John mentioned, Marzek Fine Foods is starting construction soon. They're right off of 88th and Harlan, so you'll see that building go into construction. Vatos Tacos is coming in, and they're located right off of the Central Square Plaza. They're already under construction. They're doing their tenant finish. So I anticipate that they'll be opening probably around the December timeframe. Pet Vet 365 is located in Eaton Street, and they definitely need someone to take care of the animals in downtown because there are a lot of dogs and cats in that area. So they'll be opening up. They're under their tenant finish right now, and I anticipate that they'll be opening over the next couple months. Bluebird Family Dentistry is actually opening up in November. Metabolics just started their tenant finish in the Aspire building. We have the LET that just started their tenant finish in the Ascent building right next to Bonchon. And Sherman Associates Regional Office, they'll be opening up anytime now also. The one that everyone talks about is the market hall. Is it still coming? I know that there was a lot of information that was distributed a while back, and there was one person that we were under lease with that fell through. So right now, please understand that the Aspire building is under lease with someone else to run that market hall. It is coming soon. We anticipate the construction may start as early as the end of this year or next year, and it'll take approximately 6 months for that tenant finish, is what they're anticipating at this point. So a lot of excitement. This is what we want is, what is that activation? What's coming down or happening in downtown Westminster? What are those retail sites? And there are restaurants as well as services, Hope Pediatric, 100% Chiropractic, Lash and Company, Bank Central. So a little bit of everything.
Hey, Mona, do you want to
And
explain what metabolic is for folks?
Metabolic is they're what are they? They're not a circuit group, but I can't remember what they're calling themselves. I apologize, John.
No, no worries. I always forget because I'm like, what's metabolic? But it's some sort of like fitness, right?
It
So
is a fitness
exercise and yeah.
and they're quite excited about that. I know they're trying to work with our special events team to see if they can actually start some type of classes either on Central Square or out in the Center Park area. Thank you, whoever commented. Hit training gym. Thank you so
Hey, there
much,
you go.
Christopher. So yes, so they're really excited about being a part of downtown Westminster, and they want to start those activation and those classes, even talking about possibly starting, right away. So even before the tenant finish is done. So
Yeah, thank you. And we'll catch up on a lot of those on the chat box. Really great questions. Appreciate those. And as we wrap up, we'll kind of run back through those with Mona. I'll give you the next couple slides here.
thank you. As far as activation, as John mentioned, I mean, downtown Westminster is something that you want that to be activated. How do you start drawing that activation? And the city of Westminster has been actively working on activation for downtown Westminster. So September has been quite busy with their neighborly nights on Friday nights. The next upcoming event is this Friday with their Wild Wagon. So if you can stop by anytime between 6:30 and 8:30, it'll be a great program for you. On September 29th, they're having a concert in the plaza. Please stop by for that. They'll have live music by Pandas and People. September 26th through 29th is Art Week. Inks and Drinks is actively participating with the city on that and offering specials. So if you've been looking at, signing up for classes, please go to their website and see what they have available. And then October 7th through 29th is a Heartifacts event. So it's a pop-up community museum that will be held in the Aspire building. There's an open event on October 7th, and they will be open through the month of October. So please take the time to stop by and visit that. It's quite exciting to have something like this in downtown Westminster. So that is part of the activation. The city staff, and John, I'm not sure if you want to go to the next slides.
Sure.
They've had a lot of events in downtown Westminster. They've had Top Taco. They've had, the Westy Fest down there. Top Taco drew over 4,000 visitors. Westy Fest was over 30,000 one year. So quite exciting to see this activation in downtown and just to try to build that community. That's what we want, is trying to build that community, give everyone a place to go. There is an entertainment district that has been created in downtown Westminster, which covers a majority of the sites. We still need to create a promotional association who will create the common consumption area. With that, they'll be able to block off streets, similar to what the Orchard does for their concerts. You have an area that's blocked off, you can have your drinks, walk about, within that bounded area, but just have that community come together. And that's what this is all about. So.
All right. Thank you, Mona. Appreciate it. Hey, before I forget, as far as the events and activities, where can folks find out more information if they're curious about artifacts and the events coming up?
They can look on the city's website under the special events page, and everything is listed there.
Perfect. Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, and a big shout out to our kind of Parks Rec Libraries teams that are putting on these just wonderful events. Again, we can go build infrastructure, but unless you can bring the people, it means nothing. And so, yeah, thank you again. And I probably should open with this, but you're hearing from the three of us today, but quite candidly, it's the entire city from top down, from elected officials to boots on the ground and everything in between. It's like it has taken a big lift by every single department. And so just, shout out to everybody on this call that represents, from finance to policy and budget to, community development, public works. I mean, everybody, police, fire. We honestly, city attorney's office, we're in constant communication with everybody that's on this call, their department. So again, thank you for just listening in today. So with that, let's hit some of the questions. I may just go top down. Indulge us here for just a couple minutes. We're right about 12:43, so I think we got time to kind of just hit the chat box. First one I saw was I'll say Natalie Martinez. So yay, worked at the AMC Westminster Theater. So the 5 was actually inside the mall. Because remember that I think there was 2 different theaters, right? There was the 5 screen that was inside the mall, and the 3 screen that was outside the mall is where I saw, I think, Batman growing up as a kid. So no, it's such a fun memory. Appreciate that. Next question, I think also from Natalie there. What is the average rent or mortgage in the new homes in downtown? So the rental, I think we have 4 different rental projects. The Eden Street is actually a affordable housing, 30 to 60% of the AMI. There's always a wait list. In fact, I just heard yesterday they're 100% occupied with a wait list for that building. The other ones, the Aspire as well as the Ascent, which were Sherman developments. We did something kind of unique in there, particularly for city staff to be aware of. We actually required them to have 10% of those units held at 80% AMI. So what that means is if your family income is at that 80% or less, you would actually qualify for one of those units that they have to hold in both of those buildings, which is a really great opportunity to get all the amenities and a nice place to live in those rental projects. I would, love to quote you on what the rental rates are going. I'll just give you a range because it depends on, studios to 1 and 2 and 3 bedrooms. I've heard everywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 a month, which I don't know where the 4,000 one is, but that's pretty expensive. I get that, but yeah, it is a broad range of rental rates in the downtown. Now, the townhomes, so the first 34 units, again, they sold, I think, somewhere between 550 to 750, somewhere in that range when they came out of the ground. The next round of townhomes will probably be similar, maybe a little bit less on 92nd Avenue. And then the condos, again, will be a different category as they hit those. So if you are curious about those, I believe, Moni, you might have to remind me of the name. Is it WYND Flats, or I guess Harlan's on Townhome, or Townhomes on Harlan is their website. You should be able to go to their Downtown Westy Living. There's like 3 different names. Sorry for just rambling here, but I think it's downtownwestyliving.com. I think it's their website. Okay, I'm getting some nods from Mona here. So you can find out what the next offerings are for those. Michael, are we rethinking? Oh, here you go. Great question. Of what might be built along the east side of Eden, given the paradigm shift from work from home. Seems like there's a lot of unused office space since the pandemic. 100% agree, Michael. And I think that's the dynamic environment we're in right now. Couple things. We also know there's a flight to quality when it comes to office space. So one of the items we are talking about is we've held those D blocks, we call them D1 through D5, along Benton and US 36 for office. Now, there could be some mixture of residential and hotel kind of baked in there as well, but primarily holding those for office. Why? If, and I'll say if, we start to see a big shift for people getting back to work, one of the items with that is quality. And if you know Boulder, Boulder is basically built out. The Interlochen site is built out for office. Denver, that's a lot of older 1980s kind of Class B office space. They're trying to figure out how to reconverge those. And so when you think about quality Class A plus office space, we're really in a good position to offer that brand new build up that nowhere else between Denver and Boulder has that opportunity. So that's to say that we actually have a couple developers we're talking to office right now, and we're going to hold those until we really understand what that future is. Doesn't mean we won't pivot and bring in some more residential or different type of product types, but we are also looking at one of these blocks as a cultural. When we presented to council, and I know that'd be one of the other questions. In fact, the next one is what's the current council's opinion / vision of downtown? Couple things. Historically, it's been a mixed bag. Huge successful support, moderate to some negative, and everything in between. What I'll tell you is when we went to council back in May, that really was our reset with this council. And it was like, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we're going. There was a mindset that we were just going to build a bunch of apartments. They were podium +4, boxy looking buildings. What you saw in some of the renderings today was really a mixture of those uses with ownership residential, 2-story units, as we start to blend into the community, denser developments in the core and along US 36. What I'll say is that as we walked out of that meeting with council that night, we had unanimous support. Please move forward. Even with one of our councilors who has, not been supportive of a lot of things, it was like, go get them. Like, let's bring in the revenue for the city because we want to see that return on the investment. And so, our mayor spoke at, there was a Biz Now event we had back in July where she got up on stage and really was able to share what has occurred on this site in a very passionate way. And so I'll say that, yeah, we have majority support with council for this vision moving forward, which every year we do a quick reset. How are we doing? Are we on track? So that will continue to be the case. Next question is the older adult section for rent or purchase. So I did mention the active adult 55 plus project. That is a rental. And I think they're looking at around 200 units for that development. Next question, older adult set. Yeah, for rent to purchase. Okay, got that. And let's see, I'm gonna keep rolling. Oh, do the parks have to be named? Oh, yeah, cardinal directions. Yeah. So obviously at northeast part, north, west, right? Yeah, that was absolutely a placeholder as the plan was originally developed. John, you remember some of those things? So yeah, I think there's great opportunity to rename parks, do those things. I know the city's done that very recently. Yeah. John, you we often get this. Was it Center Park or Central Square? Which part? Those two
don't
always get confused.
all changes by the day. Who knows? It's a great idea.
Yeah, so we definitely put some energy around that. John, this question's for you from Christopher Emmons. Will the putting green fix my short game? John, any thoughts?
Considering I haven't seen his short game, I can't render an opinion on that. We shall see. Maybe we'll have to have a competition out there.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, hopefully it's not too much of a short game. It's putting. I hope you're not bringing up the wedge, but you never know. Next one, let's see. He plans to build in the large parking lot next to Alamo. Yes, 100%. So one of the dynamic phasing approaches we've had with downtown is where the Alamo Draft House parking lot is. So it's our block A3 just north of the Draft House. We have an agreement with them to provide up to 300 non-exclusive parking spaces for the theater. The beautiful thing about the theater is they typically don't need their parking in the evenings and weekends. When we talk to office development, they would need it in daytime use. And so one of the strategies with our parking garages is to have a mixture of off-peak uses and shared uses so we can maximize utilization of those garages. So we actually have a planned garage behind Alamo Draft House that would provide for the draft house and residential wrapping that garage. When that happens, it opens up that A3 service lot for future development. So yes, even on this image, you can see that's actually a prime location for a combination of uses from, it could be partially townhomes, rental residential, ownership residential as well. So no, great question. Those are things we continue to evolve throughout the downtown. Let's see, Chris talked about with the owner of Metabolic. Awesome. That is so cool. Appreciate that. Let's see. You can also demo some of the e-bikes. Oh, not demo as in destroy, but demonstrate. Thank you. Some e-bikes at the concert on the plaza on the 29th. That's a great idea. I don't know if might have to ask Bridger or somebody if that's something we could kind of parlay with that event. That would be cool. Michael, awesome, great terrariums. I've heard a lot of feedback that people are loving making those out of inks and drinks. And again, inks and drinks is great. You can program, you can drop in, you can set up an event, make it really cool things, have something to drink at the same time. So yeah, super cool and exciting with that. Civic spaces, great question. So yes, in addition to parks, we are planning to possibly have a future, I would say there's been conversations, talks over the years. Boy, it'd be great to have some public cultural type amenity or civic presence. It could be as simple as we offer, recreation folks can offer rental facility operations out of there. We can do something, but yes, don't know exactly what that's going to look like in the future, but we've identified 2 different blocks, our A5, which is closer to Harlan, in 91st, portion of that for cultural, as well as one of those D blocks right adjacent to the park, the center park, for some sort of cultural amenity to bring people out to the downtown. Let's see, how confident am I about the RTD rail station? 2 things. I mentioned peak rail, which would be 2 trains in the morning, 2 trains at night coming in from Longmont, but there's also something called front range rail, which would run trains from literally, I think, Cheyenne all the way down to Pueblo and even Albuquerque is the goal. One of the 3 alignments goes right through the downtown Westminster site. The key part of that is any rail concept builds the infrastructure. So it gets us the platform and everything ready to go for that. The viability, I think very viable. The timing is still uncertain because that is a funding question. RTD, part of the Northwest Rail Voter Initiative back in 2004, said they would have this section done by 2042. Well, here we are. That's less than 20 years away now. So it's good to see that RT is at least investing money into what they call their common set of facts, which identifies how much it's going to cost, how to operate, how to maintain it. That, in fact, they got another public meeting, I think, coming up in October to talk about the progress they're making on each of those stations from downtown up to Longmont. So those are rolling to be determined. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Mona, for posting the websites for the town-owned condominiums. And I think, other than a couple other comments, that might be about it. So with 5 minutes left, I would be negligent if I didn't just give a one last shout out for our Westminster Legacy Foundation. They are having their annual awards breakfast coming up on November 3rd. So if you're interested in that, please contact them. With that, unless there's any other questions, we got about 5 minutes left at the top of the hour. First of all, last of all, thank you for all you do, for the service that you provide to our wonderful community and make this a wonderful place to live, work, and play. And thank you for listening in. If you do have questions, you can find John Van, Mona, and myself here in Economic Development. We're always happy to answer those questions and or redirect you to folks that have the answers as well. So again, thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys, and look forward to seeing you around the city. Take care. Shelby, I will kick it back to you.